The champagne tower caught the light from the crystal chandeliers. 200 guests in designer suits and silk dresses filled the grand ballroom of the Harrington estate. White roses everywhere, a string quartet playing pachelbel. It was the kind of wedding that belonged in a magazine spread, the kind that made people whisper about old money and good taste. And there I was, standing by the bar, invisible. I watched my ex-husband Justin walk through the crowd like he owned the world, his arm around Millionaire, the woman he left me for. Her dress probably cost more than my first car. Swarovski crystals caught the light with every step she took. She kept touching her stomach, making sure everyone noticed, making sure everyone knew she was carrying his child. I wasn't supposed to be there, but fate has a funny sense of humor. An old man at a nearby table was getting louder with each whiskey, Randall Pemberton. Everyone called him Lou. He was my late grandmother's closest friend for 40 years. They used to play bridge together every Thursday evening until she couldn't remember the rules anymore. He had no idea I was standing 15 feet away, nursing a glass of sparkling water. Lou slapped the table and laughed at something his companion said. His cheeks were flushed from the alcohol. Then he leaned back in his chair, loosened his tie, and started talking about his recent trip to Oregon. "I went to visit my son," he said, waving his glass so hard some whiskey splashed onto the white tablecloth. "But I made a stop in Astoria first. You know that little coastal town? Beautiful place. Reminds me of the Maine coast, but quieter. I ran into the sweetest girl there, Eleanor Parker's granddaughter. Remember Eleanor? God rest her soul. Finest woman I ever knew." The man across from him nodded politely, probably wondering when he could excuse himself. Lou continued, oblivious to his companion's discomfort. "That girl Brenda? She's living in Eleanor's old house now. 4 bedrooms, ocean view, rose garden that could be in a magazine. I'm telling you, Vernon, the place is stunning. Eleanor always had taste. And that garden? She used to make me help her prune the roses every spring. Now her granddaughter is keeping it alive." I felt my heart skip. My hands tightened around my glass. Justin was 3 tables away now, shaking hands with the business partner. Millionaire beside him, radiant and smug. Her diamond earrings sparkled when she tossed her hair. Lou's voice carried across the room like a foghorn. Eleanor left her everything. The house, the investments, the trust funds. Last I heard, it was close to $5 million total. Can you believe it? $5 million. That girl is set for life, and she deserves every penny. Smart too, works as a designer now. Her boss can't stop raving about her. Says she's the most talented hire he's ever made. I watched Justin's hand freeze mid-handshake. His head turned slowly toward Lou's table. The color drained from his face like someone had pulled a plug. His smile disappeared. His eyes went wide. $5 million. His ex-wife, the one he called boring, the one he said had no ambition, the one he traded for his 26-year-old secretary because she knew how to make him feel like a king. Millionaire noticed his expression. She touched his arm, her brow furrowing with concern. But Justin didn't respond. He just stood there, frozen, as the truth washed over him like cold water. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a man who thought he'd traded up ended up realizing he'd thrown away a fortune. How a wedding designed to announce his triumph became the scene of his complete destruction. My name is Brenda Parker. For 9 years, I worked as a senior logistics coordinator for a shipping company in Newark. I made $78,000 a year. Not glamorous, not exciting, but honest work that paid the bills and challenged my mind in ways that mattered. Justin never let me forget how ordinary I was. He was a management consultant, or at least that's what he called himself. He had an office in Midtown Manhattan with his name on the door in gold lettering. He wore Italian suits from a tailor on Madison Avenue. He drove a Porsche Cayenne that cost more than most people's annual salary. He talked about deals and partnerships and growth strategies like they were sacred texts that only the enlightened could understand. And me? I scheduled container shipments across 3 continents. I tracked delivery routes through 17 time zones. I solved problems at 3 in the morning that nobody else wanted to touch because they required patience and precision and the kind of attention to detail that doesn't show up on a LinkedIn profile. To Justin, I was background noise, the wife who came home tired with a briefcase full of logistics reports. The wife who didn't want to attend his networking dinners because she'd already spent 12 hours managing crises. The wife who preferred a quiet evening with a book over champagne with strangers who only cared about what you could do for them. He used to introduce me at parties with this little dismissive wave of his hand. This is Brenda. She handles shipping schedules. Not exactly glamorous, but someone has to do it. Then he'd laugh like it was a joke we all shared, like diminishing me was just part of our routine. I smiled through it, every single time. I had perfected the art of swallowing humiliation like it was fine wine. What Justin didn't know, what nobody knew, was that 6 months before our divorce, my grandmother, Eleanor, passed away. Eleanor Parker was the only family I had left. My parents died in a car accident when I was 7 years old. A drunk driver ran a red light on a rainy night in October. The police officer who came to my school to tell me was crying harder than I was. I didn't understand yet what forever meant. Eleanor took me in that same week. She was my mother's mother, a woman in her 60s who had never expected to raise another child. But she did it without complaint. She gave me her spare bedroom with a view of the rose garden. She helped me with homework every night. She taught me how to bake bread and prune hydrangeas and save money even when it felt like there wasn't any money to save. She lived in a beautiful house in Astoria, Oregon, a craftsman-style home built in 1923 with original woodwork and a wraparound porch. The rose garden she tended every single day until her hands couldn't hold the pruning shears anymore. When she got sick, she refused to move to assisted living. She said she wanted to die in the house where she'd lived for 53 years, and she did, peacefully, in her sleep, with the scent of roses drifting through the open window. When she died, her lawyer called me. I sat in his office in Portland, still numb from the funeral, while he read through her will. My hands were shaking. I couldn't stop thinking about the last time I saw her, how thin she had become, how her eyes still sparkled when she smiled. The house was mine. 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, ocean view from the master bedroom, original hardwood floors, a kitchen she had renovated in 1987 with copper pots hanging from the ceiling, appraised value of $890,000. But that wasn't all. My grandmother had been quietly investing for 50 years. She started with $100 a month, money she saved by making her own bread and growing her own vegetables. She bought dividend stocks in companies she believed in, utility companies, consumer goods, blue chips that paid consistent returns year after year. She invested in municipal bonds when interest rates were high. She diversified her portfolio with the patience of a woman who understood that wealth was built slowly. She lived simply, never bought anything she didn't need, drove the same Honda Civic for 22 years, made her own clothes until her eyesight got too bad to thread a needle, never told anyone how much she had because she didn't believe in bragging. The trust funds totaled $4.7 million. I remember sitting in that lawyer's office trying to breathe, trying to understand. The numbers on the paper blurred. I asked him to repeat them. Then I asked him again. I was a millionaire. I had been a millionaire for 6 months while my husband treated me like I was nothing. Here's the thing. I never told Justin. Not because I was planning anything, not at first. I just couldn't bring myself to share that part of my grandmother with him. Eleanor never liked Justin. She met him twice, once at our engagement party and once at our wedding. Both times she pulled me aside afterward. That man has hungry eyes, she said. Be careful with hungry men. They're never satisfied with what they have. I didn't listen then. I thought she was being old-fashioned. I thought she didn't understand how modern relationships worked. I thought Justin loved me for who I was, not what I could give him. But I remembered her words when I found the messages on his iPad. 2 weeks after I inherited everything, Justin left his tablet at home when he rushed to a morning meeting. A notification popped up while I was making breakfast. A message from Millionaire, his secretary. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that even as my finger moved toward the screen, but I did. The messages went back 2 years, 730 days of deception, 2 years of I miss you and I can't wait until we're together and she doesn't deserve you. 2 years of him telling another woman that I was boring, unambitious, dead weight, that I held him back from the life he deserved, that I was a mistake he was planning to correct. 2 years of promises. He told Melaine he would leave me, that he would give her the life I never could, that she was everything I wasn't, young, exciting, appreciative, the kind of woman who made a man feel like a king. I sat at the kitchen table for 3 hours, reading every message. My coffee went cold, the eggs burned on the stove until the smoke alarm went off. I didn't cry. Something strange happened instead. I felt light, like a fog that had been suffocating me for years had finally lifted, like I could see clearly for the first time in a decade. I wasn't losing a marriage. I was being set free, and I had $5 million that Justin didn't know about. Justin thought he was marrying up when he chose Melaine. He thought he was upgrading from the boring logistics coordinator to the exciting young secretary who laughed at his jokes and made him feel powerful. He had no idea he was letting $5 million walk out the door without a fight. I didn't tell him about the inheritance. I didn't confront him about the affair. I simply started planning my exit, quietly, carefully, with the patience my grandmother taught me while we waited for roses to bloom. That patience would cost him everything. Let me tell you about the man I married. When Justin and I first started dating, he was charming. He was the most attentive man I'd ever met. He remembered my coffee order after the first date. He sent flowers to my office on random Tuesdays just because he was thinking about me. He wrote handwritten notes and left them in my coat pocket. He made me feel like I was the only woman in any room, the only person who mattered in the entire world. That man disappeared somewhere around year 3. By year 5, I had become a supporting character in his story. My job was to keep the house clean, plan the dinner parties, and smile at his colleagues. My opinions didn't matter unless they agreed with his. My dreams didn't exist unless they served his goals. I was decoration, a prop in the stage play of his successful life. The money was the first weapon he used against me. Justin made more than I did. He reminded me of this constantly, in small ways and large. When we bought the apartment in Manhattan, he put his name first on the deed because he said it was traditional. When we opened a joint account, he set himself as the primary holder because it made the paperwork easier. When I asked about equal access to our savings, he laughed like I had told a funny joke. "You just spend it on candles and throw pillows," he said. "Women don't understand money the way men do. Trust me, I've got this handled." So he gave me an allowance instead, $400 a month for personal expenses, like I was a teenager asking for gas money from her parents. I paid for groceries out of that $400, haircuts every 6 weeks because he said I needed to look presentable, birthday gifts for his mother who never seemed to like anything I chose, anniversary cards for his parents, the dry cleaning he forgot to pick up, the prescription medications our insurance didn't cover. By the end of each month, I had maybe $20 left, sometimes not even that. Meanwhile, Justin bought a new watch for $6,000 because he deserved something nice after closing a deal. He leased the Porsche for $1,800 a month because image mattered in his business, and you couldn't show up to meetings in a Honda. He bought bottles of wine that cost more than my weekly allowance because he had developed a sophisticated palate. I found out later, through the forensic accountant, that he had a secret account, $180,000, funneled there over 4 years, money that was supposed to be ours, money he told me we didn't have when I asked about taking a vacation, money he swore didn't exist when I suggested we start saving for a house in the suburbs. That money went to Melaine, jewelry from Tiffany's, weekend trips to hotels I'd never heard of, in places I'd never been, a down payment on the apartment he promised her after our divorce. He was building a life with her using money he stole from us while telling me we couldn't afford new curtains. He was planning to leave me broke, and he thought I was too stupid to notice. The social humiliation came next. Justin's company had a Christmas party every year, black tie, open bar, the kind of event where deals got made over scotch and small talk. The kind of event I dreaded because it meant 4 hours of smiling at people who looked through me like I was made of glass. That year, the year before I found the messages, Melaine came as his guest. Not as his date, of course. That would have been too obvious. She was his secretary. She needed to be there. She needed to network. She needed to make connections. She needed to show the partners that she was a valuable member of the team. But I saw the way he looked at her across the room. The way his eyes followed her when she walked to the bar, the way his hand lingered on her back when he introduced her to clients, the way he laughed at her jokes, really laughed, like she was the funniest person he'd ever met. He hadn't laughed at my jokes in years. And then there was dinner. We sat at a table with 3 of his partners and their wives. The conversation turned to work, as it always did at these events. One of the partners, a man named Franklin with silver hair and a permanent frown, mentioned a deal that had just closed. $2 million in contracts, a significant win for the firm. Justin beamed like a child who had just won a trophy. That was all Melaine. She closed that deal single-handedly. I gave her the lead and she ran with it. Incredible work. I don't know what I'd do without her. Everyone at the table turned to look at Melaine. She was sitting 3 seats away, perfectly positioned to receive the praise. She blushed on cue, a delicate pink spreading across her cheeks. Oh, it was nothing, really. Justin guided me every step of the way. I couldn't have done it without his mentorship. Mentorship. That's what they were calling it. Then someone asked about me. Franklin's wife, a woman named Claudia who wore pearls and judgment in equal measure. What do you do, Brenda? I don't think I've ever heard. Before I could answer, Justin cut in. His hand waved dismissively in my direction. She handles shipping schedules for a company in Newark. Not exactly glamorous, but someone has to do it. He said it with a smile, like it was a joke we all shared, like diminishing me was just casual dinner conversation that everyone engaged in. Melaine laughed, a small, polite laugh that made my stomach turn. She covered her mouth with her hand like she was trying to be respectful, but her eyes were gleaming. The table moved on to other topics: wine recommendations, vacation homes, private schools for children I didn't have and never would. I smiled. I always smiled. I had perfected the art of swallowing humiliation like it was champagne. That decision would cost him everything. He just didn't know it yet. The worst came 3 months before I found the messages. Justin's parents hosted a family dinner at their home in Greenwich, Connecticut. His sister Patricia flew in from Boston with her husband and their perfect children. His brother Thomas came from Chicago with stories about his latest promotion. It was supposed to be a celebration of his father's retirement after 40 years in finance. And Melaine was invited. Justin said she needed to be there. Something about documents his father had to sign related to the company, business that couldn't wait, family and work blending together the way they always did with the Stones. I believed him because I wanted to believe him, because the alternative was too painful to consider. His mother greeted me with a hug that felt like an obligation. Patricia smiled through me. Thomas shook my hand like I was a business associate he was meeting for the first time. 9 years of marriage, and they still treated me like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. At dinner, his mother asked about grandchildren. When are you two going to give me something to spoil? I'm not getting any younger, you know. Patricia has 3 already. Thomas just announced his wife is pregnant. When is it your turn? I opened my mouth to answer, to explain that we had talked about it, but the timing never seemed right. But Justin spoke first. We're focused on the business right now, he said, cutting his steak without looking at me. Maybe someday, when things settle down. His mother nodded, disappointed but understanding. Of course, dear, there's always time. Then Melaine touched her stomach, just for a second, a gesture so small that nobody else noticed. Her hand rested there for half a heartbeat before moving to her wine glass. But I noticed, and I saw Justin's eyes flick to her hand. I saw the corner of his mouth twitch upward. I saw something pass between them, something secret and electric, something that excluded everyone else at the table. In that moment, I knew. The affair wasn't just physical. It wasn't just emotional. It was planning. It was future building. It was the life he wanted to have with someone who wasn't me, the grandchildren he would give his mother, just not with his wife. I excused myself from the table, walked to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face until my makeup ran, and I had to fix it with trembling hands. I didn't cry. I was past crying. My tears had dried up somewhere around year 7 when I realized that nothing I did would ever be enough for him. When I came back to the table, Justin was telling everyone about a vacation he wanted to take. Hawaii, he said, maybe next summer, when things calmed down with the business. He was describing a resort on Maui, the snorkeling, the sunset cruises. He didn't mean me. He meant her. I ate the rest of my meal in silence. I complimented his mother on the roast, even though it was dry and overcooked. I helped clear the dishes, even though the housekeeper tried to stop me. I played the role of the dutiful wife one last time perfectly, without a single crack in the performance. And I started counting the days until I could leave. What happened next would change everything. After I found the messages, I didn't confront Justin. That would have been satisfying, yes. I imagined it 100 times, throwing his iPad at his head, screaming the truth in front of his colleagues, posting the screenshots on every social media platform I could find, watching his face crumble as his perfect life shattered around him. But satisfaction is temporary. Strategy is permanent. I called a lawyer instead. Constance Whitfield was a partner at a firm in Hoboken that specialized in high-asset divorces. She had gray hair cut in a sharp bob, eyes like a hawk, and a reputation for dismantling cheating husbands with surgical precision. She charged $600 an hour and was worth every penny. I sat in her office on a Tuesday afternoon and laid everything out. The affair that had been going on for 2 years. The secret account I had discovered through bank statements he thought I never looked at. The years of financial control and emotional manipulation. Constance listened without interrupting. She took notes on a yellow legal pad, her handwriting neat and precise. When I finished, she leaned back in her leather chair and steepled her fingers. "Here's what we're going to do," she said. "We're going to find out exactly how deep this goes, and then we're going to make sure you walk away with everything you deserve." I told her about the inheritance. Her eyes widened for just a moment before her professional mask slipped back into place. "Your grandmother was a wise woman," she said, "and you were wise not to tell him. That money is yours. It stays yours. But we need to know exactly what he's hiding so we can protect your interests." Constance hired a forensic accountant named Glenn Mercer. He was quiet, methodical, and very good at finding money that people wanted to hide. He had worked for the IRS for 15 years before going private. He could trace a dollar through 17 shell companies and still tell you where it came from. Within 2 weeks, Glenn had a complete picture of Justin's finances. It was worse than I thought. Justin was $340,000 in credit card debt. 4 different cards, all maxed out, all with interest rates that would make a loan shark blush. His minimum payments alone were eating $8,000 a month. His company had been losing clients for 3 years. The big Japanese partnership he bragged about at dinner parties had pulled out 18 months ago. 3 of his 4 major accounts had reduced their contracts significantly. Revenue was down 62% from its peak. The partnerships he talked about constantly were dissolving one by one. His oldest partner, Franklin Cross, had been trying to force a buyout for 6 months. His second partner had already started his own firm and taken 2 major clients with him. The Porsche was leased. He was 3 months behind on payments. The apartment was mortgaged to the limit. He had refinanced twice in 2 years, pulling out equity to fund a lifestyle he couldn't afford. The Italian suits were bought on credit cards he couldn't pay. My husband wasn't successful. He was a very convincing actor playing a successful man. He had built an empire out of smoke and mirrors, and it was all about to come crashing down. But that wasn't even the best part. Glenn traced the payments Justin made to Elaine. $47,000 over 18 months. Jewelry from Tiffany's totaling $12,000. Weekend trips to boutique hotels totaling $19,000. Cash deposits into her personal account totaling $16,000. She wasn't just his mistress. She was his investor. Elaine believed Justin was wealthy. She believed he was successful. She believed he would take care of her once I was out of the picture. She had been waiting 2 years for him to leave his boring wife and give her the life she deserved. She had no idea he was broke. She had no idea she was investing in a sinking ship. She had no idea the man she loved was a fraud. There was one more discovery that made everything click into place. Constance found an ally, a woman named Doris Pendleton. Doris had been Justin's accountant for 6 years before he fired her. She was 58 years old with glasses that made her eyes look enormous and a memory that recorded every number she had ever seen. Her crime was questioning the numbers, pointing out that revenue projections didn't match actual income, suggesting that maybe, just maybe, some of his reports to investors were exaggerated. Justin called her paranoid, unprofessional, and disloyal. He showed her the door on a Friday afternoon and had security escort her out like she was a criminal. But Doris kept copies. She kept emails. She kept a paper trail that documented every inflated number Justin had ever reported. Every projection that didn't match reality, every promise to investors that he knew he couldn't keep. Fraud, Constance said when she reviewed the documents. Not proven in court yet, but enough to destroy his reputation if the right people saw it. Enough to end his career permanently. I wasn't just leaving a marriage. I was watching a house of cards about to collapse, and I had the blueprints. I knew exactly which card to pull to bring the whole thing down. But I wasn't going to pull it. That wasn't my style. I was going to let him do it to himself. The divorce was quick. I told Constance I wanted out fast. No fighting over assets, no drawn-out negotiations, no depositions or courtroom battles, just clean and done. She thought I was making a mistake. Her professional opinion was clear in her voice. "You're entitled to half of everything," she said. "Even with his debts, there's equity to claim. The apartment alone is worth fighting for, and if we expose the fraud, we could get significantly more." I shook my head. "I just want my clothes and my personal items. He can keep the apartment, the car, whatever's left. I just want to be free." Constance looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching my face for something. Then she nodded, slowly. "If that's what you want, but I want you to understand that you're walking away from a significant settlement." "I understand," I said, "and I want to walk away anyway." We filed the papers the next day. Simple, clean, uncontested. Justin didn't even hire his own lawyer. He signed everything I put in front of him without reading a single page. He seemed almost giddy, like a child who had gotten away with something, like he couldn't believe his luck. He was suspicious for about 5 minutes. The morning he signed the papers, he squinted at me over the kitchen table. "This seems too easy," he said. "What's the catch?" "No catch," I said. "I just want to start over, a clean break. I think it's better for both of us." He studied my face, looking for the trap. Then his arrogance took over, the way it always did. His expression relaxed into a smug smile. "She finally accepted she was nothing without me," I heard him tell his brother on the phone that night. I was standing in the next room, packing boxes, but he didn't bother lowering his voice. He thought I couldn't hear, or maybe he didn't care if I did. "She's moving to Oregon, can you believe it? Some little town nobody's heard of, taking her grandmother's old house. She'll probably spend the rest of her life growing vegetables and talking to cats." He laughed at his own joke. His brother laughed along with him. I folded a sweater and placed it carefully in my suitcase. A week later, I moved to Oregon. The morning I left, I took one last look around the apartment. The cream-colored walls we had painted together when we first moved in, the hardwood floors I had polished every Saturday because Justin said it was the wife's job, the window that looked out over the city we were supposed to build a life in. Justin was in the kitchen, scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up when I came in. "I'm leaving now," I said. "Okay," he said. "Take care." Like I was a coworker changing jobs, like 9 years of marriage deserved 2 words and a dismissive wave. I dragged my suitcase to the door. I left the key on the coffee table next to the television remote. I walked out without looking back. Justin didn't ask about the house in Oregon. He assumed my grandmother had left me a small cabin in the woods somewhere, something quaint and worthless, something fitting for a woman like me, a boring woman with no ambition who handled shipping schedules. I let him assume. 2 months later, I heard through Jolene, my best friend from college, that Justin was engaged to Millionaire. The wedding was going to be spectacular. They had booked the Harrington Estate in Connecticut, a venue that cost $89,000 just for the ballroom. Millionaire had ordered a $15,000 dress covered in Swarovski crystals. They hired a symphony orchestra instead of a DJ. The champagne was being imported from France, 300 bottles at $200 each. Jolene called to warn me. She was furious on my behalf, the way good friends get furious when someone they love has been wronged. "That snake," she said, her voice tight with anger. "He's spending money like he's a Rockefeller, and that woman keeps touching her stomach like she's carrying the royal air. The whole thing makes me sick." I listened. I didn't react. I was sitting on my grandmother's porch, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold and pink. "Let them have their wedding," I said. "It doesn't matter to me anymore." And it didn't. Not really. But I knew something Justin didn't know. I knew his house of cards was about to collapse. I knew the debts were piling up faster than he could pay them. I knew his partners were pulling out. I knew Millionaire was lending him money to keep up appearances, money she expected to get back once they were married. He was building a castle on quicksand. and he'd invited the one person who knew exactly how deep he'd sink. Not me. I had no plans to be there. I had no desire to witness his downfall in person. I was done with Justin Stone. But fate, as I said, has a funny sense of humor. The invitation arrived 3 weeks before the wedding. It wasn't addressed to me, it was addressed to Randall Pemberton, care of his son's address in Stamford, Connecticut. Lou's son forwarded it to him in Oregon, where Lou was visiting family and old friends. Lou showed up at my door the next morning, waving the cream-colored envelope like it was a winning lottery ticket. "Can you believe this?" He laughed, his breath smelling of the coffee he'd picked up in town. "Justin Stone's wedding. I did some business with his father 20 years ago. Antique furniture. Nice man, Edward Stone. Had good taste. Never met his son, though. I had no idea he was your ex-husband until I saw the names on the invitation." I looked at the invitation. Heavy cardstock, gold embossing. "Mr. and Mrs. Edward Stone request the pleasure of your company at the wedding of their son Justin to Miss Melaine Harper." My name wasn't on it, of course. I wasn't supposed to be there, but Lou's was. "You should come with me, Lou," said Lou, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "As my plus one. I'm an old man. I need someone to keep me company. And honestly, I'm curious what kind of circus that boy is putting on." His father used to complain about how much Justin spent on nonsense. I should have said no. I should have stayed in my garden, pruning the roses my grandmother had planted, living the quiet life I had built for myself. But something pulled at me. Curiosity, maybe, or closure, or just the universe deciding that I needed to witness what came next. I said yes. The Harrington estate was everything Justin had ever wanted. Old money architecture from the 19th century, manicured grounds that stretched for acres, a ballroom with 20-foot ceilings, and chandeliers that probably cost more than my first apartment. The kind of place that made people feel important just by walking through the door. 200 guests filled the space. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbows on the white marble floor. The string quartet played softly in the corner, something classical and elegant. Waiters in black ties circulated with silver trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres that looked like tiny works of art. And there was Melaine, radiant in her $15,000 dress, crystals catching the light with every breath she took, her hand resting on her stomach whenever anyone looked her way, her smile wide and practiced and smug. Justin stood beside her, like a king surveying his kingdom. His suit was new, charcoal gray with a subtle pinstripe. His hair was perfect, not a strand out of place. His smile was wide and practiced. He looked like a man who had everything he ever wanted. I stayed near the bar, nursing a glass of sparkling water. Nobody recognized me. I had changed in the past year, lost 20 pounds from all the hiking and gardening, cut my hair shorter, a style that suited me better than the long waves Justin had preferred, wore a simple navy dress that my grandmother would have called elegant. The woman they remembered was gone. The new woman was invisible. Lou, however, was not subtle. 3 whiskeys in, he was holding court at a table near the dance floor. His voice carried across the room like a foghorn, growing louder with each drink. He had gathered an audience of old friends and curious strangers, all of them amused by his stories. "I went to visit my son in Oregon," he announced to anyone who would listen. "Beautiful state. Rain all the time, but you get used to it. But I stopped in Astoria first, you know, that little coastal town, right on the Columbia River. Beautiful place. Reminds me of New England." A woman at his table nodded politely, probably wondering how to escape. Lou continued, oblivious to her discomfort. "Ran into the sweetest girl there. Eleanor Parker's granddaughter. Remember Eleanor, God rest her soul? Finest woman I ever knew. We played bridge together for 30 years. She never let me win, not once. Her granddaughter Brenda is living in that gorgeous house now. 4 bedrooms, ocean view, a rose garden that could be in a magazine." My heart started pounding. I hadn't planned this. I hadn't told Lou what to say. I hadn't orchestrated anything. This was fate, pure and simple, delivering justice without my help. The man across from Lou, someone I later learned was Vernon Price, raised his eyebrows with interest. She must be doing well for herself to maintain a property like that. Lou laughed and slapped the table so hard the ice clinked in his glass. Doing well, that's an understatement, my friend. Eleanor left her everything. The house, the investments, the trust funds. I talked to her lawyer last month at a fundraiser. He said the total inheritance was close to $5 million. Can you believe it? $5 million. That girl is set for life, and she deserves every penny. Eleanor always said she was the smart one in the family. $5 million. The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. I watched Justin's head turn slowly toward Lou's table. He was 2 tables away, shaking hands with a business partner, his smile frozen in place. The color drained from his face like water from a bathtub. His hand went limp in his partner's grip. Melaine noticed his expression. She touched his arm, her manicured fingers pressing into his sleeve. "Honey, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Justin didn't answer. He was staring at Lou's table with an expression I had never seen before, something between horror and disbelief, and the slow dawning of catastrophic regret. Lou kept talking, oblivious to the bomb he was dropping. Smart girl, too. Works as a designer now. Just landed a big contract for some fancy hotel on the coast. Her boss called her the most talented hire he's ever made. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Eleanor was the same way, hardworking, humble, never bragged about what she had. The whisper started. Did he say $5 million? That's his ex-wife he's talking about. Justin left a millionaire for his secretary. I watched the information spread through the room like wildfire, heads turning, eyebrows raising, phones coming out to text friends who hadn't been invited. The news was too good not to share. Justin's partner, the one whose hand he was still holding, leaned close to him. His voice was low, but I could read his lips. Is that true? Your ex-wife inherited $5 million? Justin's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air on a dock. He looked like a man who had just been told the sky was actually green, that everything he believed was wrong. Another guest approached, a woman I didn't recognize, older, wealthy, wearing diamonds that probably cost more than Justin's car. She was looking at Justin with barely concealed amusement, the way people look at entertainment. I heard she's living in a house worth nearly $1 million on the Oregon coast. The woman's voice dripped with false sympathy. And you're here, marrying your secretary? The word secretary hit like a slap across the face. Melane's smile disappeared. Her hand dropped from her stomach to her side. She stepped forward, her chin lifted in defiance. I'm not just a secretary. I'm his wife, his partner, his equal. Not yet, someone muttered from the crowd. The ceremony hasn't happened. Uncomfortable laughter rippled through the guests. Justin was shaking now. His hands trembled at his sides. The champagne flute he was holding started to tilt, golden liquid threatening to spill on the marble floor. Then came the killing blow. Lou's drinking companion, Vernon Price, cleared his throat. He was a banker, I learned later, had been for 40 years. He knew how to read people. He knew how to deliver information for maximum impact. You know, Vernon said, his voice loud enough for the nearby tables to hear, I saw the bride at my bank last week, made quite a scene at the teller window. The room would quiet. Even the string quartet seemed to play softer. Vernon continued, his tone casual, almost friendly. She was complaining about her fiancé, said she'd already lent him $5,000 for this wedding and he still needed more. Called him a, quote, disappointment, unquote. Said she expected better when she invested in a relationship. Every eye in the room turned to Justin and Melaine. Justin's face went from pale to gray, like all the blood had drained from his body. Melaine's went from red to white, like she had been caught stealing from the collection plate at church. That's not true, Melaine stammered, her voice rising in pitch. That's not what I said. He's lying. But the damage was done. The math was devastating, and everyone in the room could do it. $5 million. That's what his ex-wife was worth. $5,000. That's what the new wife had to lend him. The disparity was staggering. The humiliation was complete. Justin's oldest partner, Franklin Cross, the one with silver hair and a permanent frown, stepped forward. His face was stone, no trace of emotion. He had been trying to push Justin out of the firm for months. Now he had all the ammunition he needed. Justin, he said quietly, though his voice carried in the silence. Is this true? Are you in financial trouble? Justin tried to laugh. It came out strangled, like a wounded animal. Of course not. This is ridiculous. Some drunk old man spreading rumors at my wedding. You know how these things are. People love to gossip. Franklin didn't smile. His eyes were cold. I've heard other things about your accounts, about revenue numbers you've been showing us, about clients you claim to have that don't exist. The color that was left in Justin's face drained completely. His lips moved, but no sound came out. "We should talk," Franklin said, his voice final. "Monday morning, my office, 8 o'clock sharp." He turned and walked away. The other partners followed like a funeral procession. Justin stood in the middle of his perfect wedding, watching his business relationships crumble in real time, his career, his reputation, his future, all of it dissolving like sugar in rain. And then he snapped. He threw his champagne glass at the floor. It shattered against the marble with a sound like a gunshot. Golden liquid splattered across white stone. Crystal fragments scattered in every direction. "Enough!" he roared, his voice cracking with rage. "Everyone just shut up!" The string quartet stopped playing mid-note. 200 guests stared in horror, phones rising to record the spectacle. Justin turned on Mullane. His eyes were wild, bloodshot, like a man possessed. "Is it true? Did you tell people at the bank that I needed your money?" Mullane took a step back, her crystal-covered dress catching the light as she retreated. "Justin, please, calm down. People are watching. This isn't the time." "Answer me!" His voice echoed off the high ceilings. She didn't answer. She couldn't. The truth was written on her face in bold letters. Guilt, shame, fear. Justin grabbed a nearby table, his fingers digging into the white linen. Champagne glasses crashed to the floor in a cascade of crystalline liquid. Silverware scattered across the marble like shrapnel. 200 people watched in stunned silence as he destroyed his own wedding. Security guards rushed forward from their positions near the doors. Edward Stone, Justin's father, pushed through the crowd, his face red with embarrassment and fury. His mother was crying somewhere near the back of the room, her mascara running in black rivers down her cheeks. And Mullane, beautiful Mullane in her $15,000 dress, stood frozen while her future husband screamed accusations at her. "You used me," Justin shouted, spittle flying from his lips. "You made me think you believed in me. You made me think you loved me." Mullane's mask finally cracked, her face contorted with rage that matched his. "Believed in you?" She laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and ugly. "You told me you were successful. You told me you had money. I've been paying for your lies for 18 months. I've been covering your debts. I've been waiting for a payoff that never came." The guests started to leave. Some ran for the exits like the building was on fire. Some walked slowly, phones recording everything, capturing the disaster for posterity. Some stood frozen, unable to look away from the train wreck unfolding before them. Justin's empire collapsed in the time it takes to play a waltz. He tried to leave, pushing past security guards, but his father grabbed his arm. "Justin, stop this. You're embarrassing the family. You're destroying everything." Justin shoved his father away with both hands. The older man stumbled backward, catching himself on a table. "There's nothing left to destroy," Justin screamed. "Don't you understand? It's already gone. All of it." The ceremony never happened. The officiant, a judge who had been a friend of the Stone family for years, announced that he could not proceed given the circumstances. He packed his folder and left through a side door without another word. I slipped out through the same door while security restrained Justin. Lou followed me, bewildered by what he had started, his face pale beneath his whiskey flush. "I'm sorry," he said as we walked to his car. "I had no idea. I was just talking. I didn't know any of that would happen." I put my hand on his arm. His sleeve was damp with spilled champagne. "You didn't do anything wrong, Lou. You just told the truth." The truth was the only weapon I needed. I hadn't planned anything. I hadn't orchestrated revenge. I had simply waited, and the truth had done the rest. 6 months later, Jolene called with the final update. She caught me in the garden, kneeling in the dirt with a trowel in my hand. I had been planting lavender along the stone wall, the same variety my grandmother used to grow. The scent would fill the house every evening once they bloomed. "Justin's company is gone," Jolene said, her voice a mixture of satisfaction and disbelief. His partners pulled out the week after the wedding. The videos went viral, millions of views. Nobody wants to do business with a man who destroys champagne towers at his own reception. His reputation is completely destroyed. I listened while brushing soil from my knees. The apartment in Manhattan got foreclosed on 2 months ago. He couldn't make the mortgage payments. He's living in a studio in Queens now, 400 square feet if you can believe it, working as a freelance consultant, which means he's unemployed and sitting in coffee shops pretending to have meetings. What about Melaine? Jolene laughed, sharp and triumphant. She sued him. $47,000 she says he owes her. All those gifts and trips and cash advances, she documented everything. They're fighting it out in small claims court now. His own almost wife is taking him to court. Can you imagine the irony? I thought about Melaine in that crystal-covered dress, all that ambition, all that scheming, all those years of waiting for her investment to pay off, and in the end, she got exactly what she deserved. And the pregnancy? Fake. She admitted it in the parking garage after the wedding. My husband's friend heard the whole thing. She was screaming at Justin that it was all a lie to speed up the wedding. She thought once they were married, she'd have access to his money. She didn't know there was no money to access. I shook my head, wiping my hands on my apron. All those elaborate plans, all those years of deception, all those lives damaged. And for what? For nothing. Jolene's voice softened, losing its edge of gossip. Brenda, you sound good, really good, better than I've heard you in years. I am good, I said, looking out at the ocean beyond my grandmother's rose garden. I'm better than I've been in a decade. It was true. My design career was thriving. The hotel project I'd worked on won a regional award for excellence in coastal architecture. Glenn, my boss at the studio, had given me a 40% raise and promoted me to senior designer. We had just been hired for a resort in Provence. I would be traveling to France in the spring. The rose garden was in full bloom. I had planted new varieties alongside my grandmother's originals, lavender along the stone wall, hydrangeas by the porch. The scent filled every room of the house, just like it used to when she was alive. I had signed up for French classes at the community center, started taking pottery workshops on weekends. I was learning to make things with my hands again, things that were beautiful and useful and entirely mine. Some people spend their whole lives building empires out of lies. They stack deceptions like blocks, higher and higher, until they can't even see the ground anymore. They convince themselves the structure is stable. They convince themselves they're untouchable. But lies have an expiration date, every single one of them. And when they expire, the only thing left is the truth about who you really are. Justin found that out in a ballroom full of people he wanted to impress. His empire didn't collapse because of me. It collapsed because it was never real to begin with. As for me, I already knew who I was. I just needed to remember. The roses my grandmother planted 50 years ago were blooming outside my window. The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that no designer could ever replicate. And somewhere in New York, a man who thought he'd won everything finally understood what he'd lost. But that was his story, not mine. Mine was just beginning. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next story. And please, rate this one from 0 to 10. Your ratings help me know what kind of stories you want to hear more of. Thank you for listening until the end. I'll see you in the next one.